Coming up on Fox 4 Sports Watch, Dez Bryant does get the deal he wants. We will go over the terms and hear from Jerry Jones himself about how the deal got done. We'll also talk about the Mavericks' new point guard, Deron Williams, and Jordan Spieth's chances at winning the third leg of the Grand Slam. Fox 4 Sports Watch, let's do it.
You're listening to Fox 4 Sports with Edward Egros.
Welcome to another installment of Fox 4 Sports Watch. I am Edward Egros, your neighborhood weekend sportscaster, and currently I am by myself. Nobody is around, no Victor Wynn, no nobody. Or that's a double negative. But regardless, I am at Valley Ranch right now. We are here for the latest on the Dez Bryant contract. He got the deal he pretty much wanted. 5 years, $70 million. That's $14 million annually, and he gets $45 million total guaranteed. He is not the highest paid receiver in the NFL, but given all the terms, he's pretty much the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. Denver's Demaryius Thomas, just moments after that, got a 5-year, $70 million deal, but a little bit less guaranteed, about $43.5 million or so. So Dez Bryant is the second highest paid receiver in the NFL. A lot of reasons why he didn't get Calvin Johnson money. A lot of that had to do with just the free agency market as it stood right then. Calvin Johnson, when he signed his 7-year deal worth a heck of a lot more than that, essentially there was a lot more guaranteed money that Calvin Johnson would have had he not signed with the Detroit Lions. So he didn't have as much negotiation power, but he pretty much got the deal he wanted, and a lot of Cowboys fans are very excited about that. Let's hear from Jerry Jones in a conference call about how this deal got done.
We know Dez well, and and as well as we know him, you see the kind of commitment that we've made here. That says everything about what we feel about him on and off the field. He's made tremendous strides since he came out of college relative to his complete maturation. He's certainly got room to improve. He'd be the first to tell you, but it is important that for the Cowboys that we have Dez Bryant's talents on the field along with all of his teammates. Dez was going to make a huge contribution, God willing, an injury not making it, but a huge contribution to our success. We know what he means to the team in many different ways. And he's evolved, to his credit, he's evolved to a player that is indispensable to us. And that's why we franchised him. But this is far the preferred way to go. And we've wanted to make a long-term agreement with Dez from the get-go regarding his negotiation. So this is a real cornerstone as we look to the pieces that we're putting together. Now, Dez would be the first to tell you that he's only one of a team here, but I'm sure pleased at this juncture with the pieces that we're putting together. We were going to have Dez as a part of our team. It's better for the Cowboys to have him under a long-term contract. It's cap-friendly to do it. It helps us have more flexibility under our cap, but more importantly than anything, it shows everyone, none any more important than Dez, how much we believe in him and how much he's a part of the success we hope to have.
Did you take Dez's threat to miss camp or regular season games seriously?
Well, it would be wrong for me to say that I take everything Dez says with as genuine, and so I don't have any of that. I read the same thing you write or read. I read that, but I also have many more times that I'm talking and communicating, and I'm just careful, and I know he is. We are not careless with our words with each other.
Again, that's Jerry Jones, Cowboys owner and general manager, and a lot of thoughts going into this one. He wanted to get this deal done. He got the franchise tag in there to help kind of get this process going. And as I said before, $70 million over 5 years. And Dez Bryant seems to be pretty happy with it. Sent out a tweet. A lot of his teammates sent out congratulatory tweets as well. Lots to like about that. Now, earlier today, I spoke to Clarence Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram about how this deal got done. So many things were happening going into it. So let's listen in to that conversation. Dez deal, a lot of drama going into it. Did you feel like that this was ultimately going to work out?
Well, I guess in the end, certainly I didn't feel that way last week, but certainly in the last couple of days and, with Dez making his ultimatum and the Cowboys making this trip to New York, there was pressure to get a deal done. And Stephen has said it along that deadlines make deals, and the deadline certainly made a difference. The Cowboys made a concerted effort to get this deal done. It was in the best interest of both sides, and they got it done. Good for them, good for Dez. We know what he's gone through. I've seen him mature. Coming here in 2010 as a controversial pick and all the off-the-field things, he's matured on and off the field. Good for him.
If you look at the history of this franchise, whenever they give someone the franchise tag, they usually wait until the last second to get something done, and this is no different, right?
Well, no doubt. And, Jerry and Stephen have had a history of waiting to the last second to get most of their contracts done, going back to the rookie deals. I remember times when they waited till the training camp to get some of the first-round draft picks signed. That's kind of how they do business. They like that pressure of getting something done, and they did. And it was in the best interest of the Cowboys. Certainly, they need Dez locked up. When they started this offseason, they prioritized signing Dez Bryant over DeMarco Murray. There's no way that the Cowboys, their fans, their coaches fathom going into the training camp, let alone the start of the season, without both DeMarco Murray and Dez Bryant.
On Monday, Dez sent out a warning via Twitter that if he doesn't get this deal, that he might miss practices, maybe even some games. How seriously did the Cowboys take that warning?
Well, Jerry said today, he talked to us on the conference call, that he took Dez at his word, and they didn't mince words, and he felt he took him seriously, certainly, and Dez took the Cowboys seriously. There was always this question of whether the Cowboys were going to call Dez's bluff, and no one thought that Dez would actually miss time in camp or miss time, certainly not miss games, because he loves football so much. And we've seen him out here, coming to OTAs. He came to minicamp for free. Why would he miss games? But again, they took him seriously. But the bottom line is, it wasn't about the threat. It was about what was in the best interest of this team. And getting the deal done was the best interest of his team. Certainly, it helps Dez. And again, we talked about what he's overcome. And certainly, he needs the money and wants the money. And it helps the Cowboys. They secured a foundational piece for a long time.
There was a report out that the NFL Players Association would have considered pursuing collusion possibilities if Denver and Dallas did not make deals with their respective wide receivers. How much validity do you feel that collusion may have been a part of this? And was a lot of this just Stephen Jones not wanting to set the market for wide receivers?
Well, I think it was more about setting the market, and really, as someone said a long time ago, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And again, I think it would have been hard for the NFLPA to prove that there were collusion between the Cowboys and Broncos. But again, Stephen has been on the record numerous times saying he didn't want to pay Calvin Johnson money and stated why he didn't think he deserved Calvin Johnson money. And in the end, Dez didn't get Calvin Johnson money, but he is the second highest receiver in football, highest paid receiver in football, and ultimately got what he wanted.
Last question for you. Dez Bryant talked a lot about Super Bowl and getting to the Super Bowl now that this deal is done. Is this just something that you can put the weight off your shoulders now and you can look ahead to other concerns for this offense?
Well, certainly you can look at other concerns, but I mean, that's the goal for this team, getting to the Super Bowl. They made a nice run last year, 12-4. They got to the NFC divisional playoffs. Everybody believes, at least in this Cowboys locker room and out here at Valley Ranch, that if they would have beaten Green Bay, that they would have beaten Seattle and gone to the Super Bowl for the first time since 1995. That's been the goal. That's been the focus of this entire offseason, taking that next step and finally getting to the Super Bowl. That's why they beefed up the defense. There's no way they could have lost Dez Bryant and really achieved that goal and really built on what they started last year. So, hey, it's Super Bowl or bust now for this Cowboys team.
2 weeks before Clarence Hill makes his beautiful excursion to Oxnard, California. We will, I'm sure, see you around sometime.
No doubt. I will see you on the beach or on the practice field, one or the other.
Clarence Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, thank you so much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.
Again, that was Clarence Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram joining me to talk about Dez Bryant's new contract. Let's move on to Deron Williams, the new Dallas Mavericks point guard. He signed a 2-year deal worth $10 million, and given the debacle that happened concerning DeAndre Jordan, maybe it's a small victory for the Dallas Mavericks that they're able to get someone of this kind of caliber for so cheap. On the other hand, couple of concerns that I know I have and a lot of other basketball fans have concerning Deron Williams' past. He's had a lot of run-ins with the coaches that he's played for. Jerry Sloan of the Utah Jazz essentially retired because he said he just couldn't deal with him anymore. Avery Johnson with the Nets butted heads with Deron Williams. And even Lionel Hollins had some issues with Deron Williams, and I'm putting that mildly. So the first thing that Deron Williams needs to do is pretty much to prove everybody that even though he wanted to come here to Dallas, he's originally from the Colony, even though he wanted to come here, he needs to prove that all of those behavioral situations and issues are a thing of the past, that he can work with Rick Carlisle. Obviously, the Mavericks are a little scarred given what happened with another troubled point guard in Rajon Rondo. And so even though they're kind of running out of options and decided to go ahead with Deron Williams, he needs to prove that he can play for Rick Carlisle and play with the Dallas Mavericks and be a teammate with Chandler Parsons and Dirk Nowitzki. If he's able to do that, then he can definitely put up some big numbers. Interesting information that Chuck Cooperstein, radio play-by-play voice of the Dallas Mavericks, sent out. Deron Williams plays better at the American Airlines Center than any other venue. Now, why? It's really hard to tell. I mean, I don't think sight lines have a whole heck of a lot to do with that, unlike in, say, college. But the fact remains he does very well in Dallas, and you hope that can continue if you're a Mavericks fan. At the same time, his defense, his plus-minus per 100 possessions is in the negative, and it's not that high offensively. So a lot of things you want to deal with in terms of what he's capable of doing just by himself in isolation situations. Now, can he lob it to Zaza? Can he help Chandler Parsons get open for some mid-range jumpers or, whatever the offense entails? And can he make Dirk Nowitzki even better in the final couple of years of his career? These are the questions that we are trying to figure out, and Deron Williams has to be an important part of this if the Mavericks are going to return to the playoffs. This is a dire situation now that DeAndre Jordan had decided to stay with the Clippers. The Mavericks simply ran out of options in a lot of different ways. They were still able to salvage something, but this has been real scramble mode. And given that Deron Williams is new to this locker room and you have a lot of new faces as well, it is an absolutely imperative that Chandler Parsons and Dirk Nowitzki kind of set the tone to say, this is our team. A lot of question marks remain concerning this offseason. And finally, let's talk about Jordan Spieth and the British Open, his opportunity to get the third leg of the Grand Slam. He would be the first player in more than 60 years to win the Masters, U.S. Open, and British Open all in the same calendar year. And what's interesting about Jordan Spieth's pursuit is it's a little different than what we've seen pretty much in golf the last several years, because usually the U.S. Open is a tree-lined course, and Fred Alberts talked about that on an earlier podcast. The U.S. Open has a specific identity that is not a links course, and this year that wasn't the case. Chambers Bay is more of a links course, just like the British Open usually is. And so even though Jordan Spieth doesn't have the experience of playing links courses as, say, some of the other golfers, and as a quick aside, it's one of the reasons why you see a lot of 40-something-year-olds win the British Open, because they simply have more experience playing a links course. They know winds a lot better than the younger golfers. But that being said, Jordan Spieth is not the prototypical young golfer who's trying to crush the ball every time he's teeing it off. And that's a real advantage for him. He's not going to crush the ball just like some of the younger guys will. And it's one of the reasons why he's an odds-on favorite. Not just because he's won the first two majors and he's playing just about as well as anybody, but he just knows how to play in a variety of circumstances, and it doesn't even matter what the course conditions are. He can play with a sizable lead, he can come from behind, and that's something Tiger Woods couldn't even do. He needed to have a lead after the third round. Now, granted, he usually did, and that's why he has 14 major championships. But when he didn't have the lead, he really wasn't going to be a factor in that final round. And Jordan Spieth, he can be a factor no matter what the situation is as far as the leaderboard is concerned. And so I feel like his chances are very, very solid, despite his inexperience at St. Andrews, despite his inexperience playing links courses. I still feel like that this young man, this 21-year-old Dallas Jesuit product, has just as good a chance to win the British Open as anybody in the field. And if he can pull that off, then it only adds to his incredible legacy that he is creating for himself. And it may be a legacy that may be unable to be duplicated by anybody else, maybe even better than Tiger Woods, given just what he's been able to do at such a young age. But again, before we deal with comparisons and things like that, let's see if he can pull this one off. It will be exciting, to say the least. And if you're going to be watching, make sure to get some sleep, because he tees off at 3:33 Thursday morning Central Time, 4:33 Eastern Time. And anyone else who's listening to this across the world, figure it out. Anyway, on that note, that does it here from Valley Ranch. I am Edward Egros, your neighborhood weekend sportscaster. Thank you so much for listening to Fox 4 Sports Watch. We will be back next week. Have a great day.
On air, online, and totally mobile, this is Fox 4.